Joe Shones, a 55-year-old Californian man, was driving his Volkswagen on a desolate mountain road near Rogers Cow Camp in the Plumas National Forest to figure out whether or not the weather would allow him to bring his family on a weekend outing the next day. However, he got stuck in a snowdrift as he traveled deeper into the night. When he stepped out of his vehicle to push it and felt a burning pain in his chest, Shones was experiencing a heart attack on February 24, 1978. As he contemplated what to do, he saw two sets of headlamps, one of which he assumed belonged to a pickup vehicle. He got out of his vehicle and shouted for help, hoping to attract the attention of the people in the cars. He later reported seeing a group of men, a woman and a baby. They continued walking and didn't acknowledge him. Hours later, while inside his snow-stuck vehicle, he saw what he believed to be flashlights. Once again, he exited his vehicle and shouted for help, but no one responded. Authorities would later recognize that his near-death experience was not the biggest story to emerge from that dark, desolate road. Shones was presumably the last person to see Ted Vire, Gary Matthias, Jack Madriga, Jack Hutt, and Bill Sterling alive. That freezing snow-filled night marked the beginning of the Yuba County Five mystery. One of the mysteries surrounding their disappearance is how these five men came to be on an inhospitable mountain road more than 50 miles from their homes in and around Marysville and Yuba City, California. All five lived with family members who closely watched them due to their intellectual disabilities or psychiatric disorders. They were often referred to affectionately as boys, despite being between 24 and 32 years old. A spur-of-the-moment mountain road excursion was uncharacteristic behavior of the young men. If authorities could not understand how the group's day ended on February 24th, at least they knew how it started. Madriga drove his four friends to a college basketball game at California State University. The preferred pastime of the five men was playing sports. According to their families, when they were together, it was generally to play or watch a game. They played together on a basketball team named the Gateway Gators. The Gators were scheduled to play their first game of a week-long tournament sponsored by the Special Olympics on February 25th. Some of them had even laid out their uniforms and asked their parents to wake them up the following day so they wouldn't miss their game. Vire, the group's eldest member, aged 32, and a former janitor, was closest to Hewitt, the group's youngest, aged 24. Sterling and Madriga, a veteran of the United States Army, were another pair of close friends. Matthias had also served in the Army, but was discharged due to mental health issues. He had schizophrenia, a condition that he managed with medication. The game at CSU finished at approximately 10 p.m. After leaving the game, the men stopped at a convenience store to buy fast food, including pies, drinks, candy bars, and milk. However, they drove east instead of traveling south to their homes, approximately 50 miles away. Madriga's Mercury Montego had been driven approximately 70 miles away from the Chico basketball game when Shones spotted it. Early on the morning of February 25th, Shones arrived at the lodge and was able to receive medical care. There was no reason for Shones to mention seeing the Mercury until Friday, when newspapers began publishing notices about five missing men. When Vire and Sterling did not return home, their mothers contacted the other children's parents, and the police quickly got involved. On February 28th, authorities discovered the Mercury on the same mountain road where Shones had last seen it, and where a park ranger had reported its location after hearing the missing persons bulletin. All the junk food had been eaten, except for half a candy bar. The vehicle's keys were gone. It had sufficient fuel to drive, but a snowbank likely caused its tires to spiral out of control. Madriga and the four other able-bodied men should have had little difficulty dislodging it. Instead, it appeared to be deserted. Around them, the police saw nothing but a rugged, dense forest, which was most likely a death sentence for the young men if they went into the woods in their light clothing. After towing the vehicle back to the station for a more comprehensive examination, the mystery only deepened. The Montego's undercarriage exhibited no dents, gouges, or dirt marks, not even on its low-hanging exhaust, despite being driven a considerable distance up a mountain road with many potholes and bumps. According to Madrigal's family, either the driver was extremely cautious or it was someone familiar with the road, a familiarity Madrigal was not known to have. His family also noted that he would not have allowed another person to drive his car. The car was also unlocked and had a window rolled down when it was discovered, and according to his family, it was out of character for him to leave his prized vehicle unsecured. During winter, it wasn't easy to organize a search party, particularly when the search area consisted of rough terrain, wooded paths, and snow-covered slopes. The region was surveyed from the air by helicopters, and on the ground, officers tried to negotiate the rugged roads using horses. They considered several eyewitness sightings, including one where the men were driving the pickup Shones had mentioned, but none seemed credible. Their families offered a $2,600 reward for information, consulted with psychics, and waited on their phones, but received no response. A response different from what they looked for came with the spring snow thaw. A small group of weekend motorcyclists discovered an abandoned Forest Service trailer in a campground on June 4, 1978. Intrigued, they entered. They were immediately hit by the stench of decaying flesh. They discovered a corpse wrapped in bed sheets from head to toe. When authorities unwrapped the bedding, they found Via without his shoes and with severely frostbitten feet. Somehow he had hiked over 19 miles from the Mercury to get there. Soon after, authorities discovered two more bodies, those of Sterling and Madrigal, 4.5 miles from Via's. Madrigal's corpse had been partially consumed by scavenging animals, while Sterling's skeleton had been dispersed across a small area. Autopsies revealed that both men died of hypothermia. 2 days later, as part of another search party, Jack Hewitt's father found his son's spine 2 miles northeast of the trailer. His shoes and trousers helped identify his body. The next day, a deputy constable discovered Hewitt's skull 300 feet away, as confirmed by dental records. His death was also ascribed to hypothermia. The only trace of Matthias was his tennis shoes, which had been left behind in the trailer. Police were uncertain why he had taken Via's leather shoes, but it was almost sure that he had done so. If police and the men's families expected closure from the discovery of their bodies, they were in for a disappointment. The trailer scene raised more queries than it did answers. Via's corpse was wrapped in 8 sheets, including his head. Had he wrapped himself up, or did someone else? The autopsy revealed that he died as a result of malnutrition and hypothermia. Via had lost 100 pounds, and the length of his beard suggested he had lived 13 weeks after his disappearance. His feet were also severely frostbitten. On a table next to the bed were several of Via's belongings, including his wallet, jewelry, a gold watch without its crystal that, according to Via's family, was not his, and a partially used candle. The investigators were most perplexed as to how Via met his fate. Despite an abundance of matches and paperback novels to use as kindling, no fire had been lit in the fireplace of the trailer. Heavy clothing for the bitterly cold winter that could have kept the men warm remained in the closet. 12 ration cans from an outside storage shed had been opened and their contents consumed, but a container in the same shed, holding an even greater variety of dehydrated foods, enough to feed all 5 men for a year if necessary, had not even been opened. Similarly, a nearby structure had a butane cylinder with a valve that, had it been opened, would have supplied the heating system of the trailer. Via's family members later explained that he lacked the common sense to use these items due to his mental disability. It appeared that Vaya was not alone in the trailer, as Matthias and potentially Hewitt were also present. Matthias's tennis shoes were found in the trailer, and the rations had been opened with a P38 can opener, which only Matthias and Madriga would have been familiar with due to their military service. Vaya, with his gangrenous feet, would have been in too much agony to draw the sheets over his body, indicating that one of the others had been there with him. Getting information from Shones didn't enlighten anyone either. It was plausible that he saw men fleeing from a car they believed to be stranded, but who were the woman and child? Shones would confess that he was unwell at the time of the sighting and could have hallucinated some of the details, but that didn't explain why the men bothered to abandon the vehicle or why they didn't respond to Shones's pleas for help unless he had imagined the entire encounter. Why was a prevalent query posed by investigators and the men's relatives. Why did the men initially decide to head east? Why didn't they try to move the vehicle after it became immobile instead of walking to nowhere in the middle of the night? Did they stumble upon the trailer by coincidence, or did someone lead them there? Why not build a fire to keep themselves warm? If Matthias left to look for help, where was his body? There was also the theory that Matthias persuaded the party to travel to Forbestown, a region between Chico and the mountain route, so he could visit an acquaintance there. Madriga may have missed a turnoff and became disoriented, driving deeper into the night until the snow stopped the mercury. The men may have panicked and believed their car was trapped, left the car, and went in search of help. 45 years on, the mystery remains unsolved. Matthias's remains have never been found. Their irrational decision to turn toward unfamiliar territory has never been explained. Despite leaving his coat at home, Vaya walked nearly 20 miles to the trailer in frigid conditions. None of the men considered walking downhill from where they had come, and instead confronted the treacherous and unfamiliar path before them. Police and families have never ruled out the possibility of foul play. Jack's mother, Melba Madriga, told the Washington Post that she believed some force had misled the group. She said, "We know good and well somebody made them do it." She would tell the Los Angeles Times that it was inconceivable that Madriga would ever drive his cherished car into an area where it could be damaged. She told the paper, "I'm positive he never went up there on his own. He was either tricked or threatened." There is one theory that could solve the decades-old mystery. As Madriga's mother had stated, did someone lead them up to the mountains? Did the only man whose remains have never been found trick or threaten the boys into taking that fateful trip? Who was Gary Matthias, and why did some people suspect him of killing or causing the deaths of the 4 young men? A sinister hypothesis emerged from 3 collaborating California publications in 2019, the Sacramento Bee, the Fresno Bee, and the Modesto Bee. The case's police records were made available to the publications as long as they did not photograph or remove them from the Yuba County Sheriff's Office. They discovered information in the archives that suggests Gary Matthias may not have been as harmless as initially believed. An excerpt of the article states, "These files, clips, and interviews shape a disturbing image of Matthias. Billed in virtually all media reports at the time as another lost lamb caught out in the cold, Matthias was an aberration within the flock, a young man who did not belong with the others. He was violently schizophrenic and had a history of drug use and wasn't intellectually disabled like the others." Matthias's history is checkered with violent and erratic behavior. After a disastrous hallucinogenic drug trip during his sophomore year of high school, he would make his first visit to a psychiatric facility. Shortly after that, he joined the military, but this didn't last long because of his substance abuse. He had at one point been placed in the brig. There he summoned a guard and punched him in the face. His excuse? "I've been in the army and I don't like it, and I thought if I hit a cop, maybe they'd let me out." He was summarily granted a medical discharge after it was found out that he had schizophrenia. Matthias decided to stay with his cousin upon his return to Yuba instead of with his parents. Within a month, another incident occurred. Matthias's cousin discovered him fondling his drugged and unconscious wife. After his cousin told him he was contacting the authorities, he said he wished to return to prison. And he did, although it was brief. He was discharged within 8 months. In December of the same year, Matthias would run into law enforcement again. The police were dispatched to the scene where Matthias, under the influence of narcotics, was pounding on a friend's door and demanding entry. He had threatened to stab the woman and kill their 3-year-old daughter. Matthias had a history of escaping from facilities and traveling great distances on foot, which may have come in handy later when the Yuba County Five disappeared. At one point, he was apprehended in Stockton and sent to a psychiatric facility. He stayed there for 2 days before escaping through a drainage conduit and hiked 80 miles back home. Matthias also broke into the residence of a local couple who awakened to find him in their room. He informed them that he was searching for a ring to return to Satan and that they owed him rent since the home was his. After this incident, he started taking schizophrenia medication and became acquainted with the other 4 individuals after joining the Gateway projects. Despite his apparent remarkable transformation, some remained skeptical of him. Following a 1978 interview with Matthias's longtime acquaintance, Janet Enzera, Yuba County Sergeant James Black wrote that Matthias had repeatedly told Enzera of a dream where he and several other people would disappear. Enzera called Matthias a very violent person, hurting several men seriously, and said that he also hates women, according to Black's interview notes. The other boys' parents were also uneasy with Matthias, even though they did not appear to be aware of his criminal record. According to investigators, he was the only one with a robust personality who would fight back when threatened. According to the case file, he was the most likely of the 5 missing youths to lead and suggest places to go or things to do. I know parents at the time told us, they told me personally, that they had deep concerns about Gary being involved in this. They were unabashed in their opinion in telling me that, an investigator said. Local, state, and federal law enforcement officers spent over 6,000 hours searching for the men. Dogs, horses, helicopters, and snowmobiles all led to dead ends. So, what most likely happened to the Yuba County Five? Was Matthias responsible in one way or another? Even though we lack a satisfactory explanation for their presence at that location, we firmly believe this mystery to be a tragic accident. The scenario most likely aligns with what was expressed by this Redditor. This case has always seemed like the simplest explanation is probably the best type. I know it sounds wild, but given the circumstances, I think that's it. I've taken my very weighed-down, beloved Ford Mustang down many of those types of roads, and if you take it slow and know how to drive, you'll probably be fine. Just my 2 cents. Also, having spent the majority of my life there, it would be very easy to be lost and succumb to the elements. Nobody around for miles, freezing winter conditions, dense forest. Fun fact, this area is fairly close to the Keddy Cabin murders as well. If you love our content and want to support the channel, feel free to check our web shop where you can find exclusive true crime merch brought to you by Bad Things.